The state does have victim impact statements that they wish to present at this time. The first being a statement from Theresa Bonhorst, who is the mother to Casey, and then followed by Dwayne Bonhorst, the father of Casey.
I read this quote on Facebook, and it really sums up many of my feelings. You don't just lose someone once, you lose them every day for a lifetime. Casey was and is my only son. I worked so hard to have him. After being married almost 15 years, he came into our life. He was a good child. He grew up in a small town and knew everyone and their dogs, and most knew him. He loved to sing and was very good at it. His friends could count on him for almost anything, and that continued until he died. He emphasized with most people he met and was truly concerned about their well-being. Casey's death has been very hard on me, my husband, our family, and friends. There's a terrible feeling of why. Why would anyone target a pizza delivery person since they do not deal with cash payments on delivery? Why did he have to be at that particular place at that time? Why did God let him die? I have dreams, sometimes nightmares about Casey. They are so real, but I wake up and know that he is gone, along with my dreams for him. I will never have grandchildren to love and spoil. Casey would have been a wonderful dad. He loved kids, and just shortly before the killing, he had been watching a friend's 4-year-old while she went to a job interview. He was excited to tell me he had taught her how to slide downstairs on her bottom and how much fun they had. He would have sung songs with them and taught them how to catch fish. He would have had dogs and cats and who knows what other animals for them as pets. I want these two men to know just how much they took away from us by killing Casey, and they should know that every day they have in prison, we will be missing Casey.
Casey was our only child. Not a day passes that we don't miss him and ask why he was murdered for the small amount of tip money in his pocket. He was just a guy doing his job. Never again will we share the accomplishments and challenges in his life or work. Theresa, his mother, would have been a wonderful grandmother. And Casey, a fine father, a role they both look forward to. We will never be grandparents. We established a memorial fund to benefit the local school music program. Co-workers of mine, Theresa's and Casey's from around the world contributed. We're talking Asia, Europe, from Canada to Brazil, coast to coast. These were also family, friends, and complete strangers who shared that they were affected by this tragedy and fear for the safety of not only themselves, but in some cases, children and grandchildren who were in the delivery business. The negative effects reach far outside the local area. Life will never be the same. It'd be easy to fall into depression and hate. Casey wouldn't want that out of concern for his mother and me. It's all about memories now. The last time I saw our son was after the autopsy. This memory is what his killers have left me with. Justice must be served. However, everyone involved in Casey's death has lost a great deal. People ask me what I think happened that night. I think some young men made a decision that greatly affected their lives, some might say ruined them. But that very decision is the reason that our son is dead. That's it.
Thank you both.
Your Honor, next we have the victim impact statement from Susan Graves Zielinski. Ms. Graves Zielinski is with Domino's Pizza.
And ma'am, if you could just start for us and for my court reporter by saying and spelling your name.
Yeah, it's Susan, S-U-S-A-N, Graves, G-R-A-V-E-S.
Okay, I thought she said.
Oh, and then I have a Zielinski, but that's not my legal.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you very much, Ms. Graves.
good morning, Your Honor. My name is Susan Graves, the franchisee of the Domino's Pizza store, where Casey Bonhorst was a team member. I am here to use my voice for many of the team members at Domino's Pizza who lost Casey on February 26, 2020. Your Honor, Casey was more than just a team member at Domino's. Casey was a leader, a mentor, a friend, and hard worker. Countless team members looked up to Casey because of his great character he displayed on and off the clock. He led the team members well. He set the standards that no task is too big or too small. Casey was always the first to volunteer, offer a helping hand, or coach people through a task at hand. Many of our team members were never taught these qualities at home, but we were lucky enough to cross paths with Casey, who impacted their lives for the better. Casey didn't preach to them, demand them, or control them, demonstrate. He demonstrated how to execute what he needed, being a coach, a mentor, rather than a manager. This quality allowed Casey to earn his colleagues' respect. Not many young men have these qualities. Casey was the exception, and at Domino's Pizza, we were blessed to have him and call him part of our pizza family. On February 26, we lost a member of our family, not an employee. I sat with many of these team members, listening to them, crying, trying to make sense of their fear, anger, and uncertainty about where and who to turn to. We brought in counselors to help with grief, sadness, anger, and anxiety. They were trying to figure out how to move forward with a missing team member, trying to find their way moving forward without Casey, and fighting the fear of anxiety of wondering how to continue their jobs with the killer/killers still out there. The fear in their lives, especially on the clock, was in present still because of the tragedy that happened to Casey. As a mother and owner of this business, how do I encourage them to go back to their jobs knowing that their safety was in jeopardy? Casey's tragedy, my team members to live in fear in a town they felt safe, at home, and part of the community. Your Honor, attending Casey's funeral was something I will never forget. I sat with team members in full Domino's uniforms, remembering an innocent man whose life was taken for no reason. Watching his parents lay to rest their only child. I sat and listened to so many stories of Casey. Casey was a teddy bear, loving, kind, and giving. His qualities and characteristics kept growing with the more stories I witnessed that day. I am saddened that I never got the pleasure of meeting this great young man. Casey was taken away for no reason and way too soon. I believe in the judicial system here in the United States, and your job today is critical. For that, I am grateful. This violent act, the thought-through process, and how to rob, steal, and murder an innocent man who was delivering a hot meal to a family in his community, and a killing of a friend, a son, a team member who has excellent qualities, characteristic, and hardworking ethic. For what? No justice will bring back Casey, which is hard to accept, but I am thankful for the freedom to speak the truth on behalf of the Dominus family. If the murderers had felt any remorse, guilt, they would have turned themselves in. Today is one of the judgment days they will have, and the other is when they take their last breath. The choices that they made that day have consequences here on earth, and I'm asking that they never do this hideous act again. I pray for these two young men, and on their next judgment day, that God knows their names written in the book of life. Thank you for your time, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Graves.
We have other statements, Your Honor, that Ms. Volkins is planning on reading. They're from members of Mr. Bonhorst's family. They did not wish to address the court personally, but wish to have their statements read.
Thank you, Your Honor. This first statement is from Mina, M-I-N-A, Bonhorst, Casey's cousin. Honorable Judge Howman, thank you for taking the time to read this letter. For the past couple weeks, I've been trying to find the words to put on this paper. I can't explain why, but it has been incredibly difficult to write. I am just going to write what I am feeling and hope this helps with your sentencing decision. Casey Bonhorst was killed in Sioux Falls on February 26, 2020. He had just turned 30 on February 3rd. I remember my mom telling me that Casey had been shot and killed. I remember feeling awful for his parents, Dwayne and Theresa. I knew he had been working that evening and that the media kept referring to him as, quote, the pizza delivery man, end quote. That annoyed me, and it still does. He was so much more than that. Casey Paul Bonhorst is the only child to Dwayne and Theresa Bonhorst. Casey was their life, their pride, and their joy. In the months following Casey's death, instead of making more memories with him, they shed tears for a son who was no longer with them to celebrate holidays and birthdays. Casey is gone. This past summer, Dwayne and Theresa attended my niece's wedding in Watertown, South Dakota. My younger sisters were sitting with them, and Theresa started to talk about Casey. She instantly teared up and sat in silence. I imagine at that moment, Theresa had a realization of another event never to be. Since Casey is Dwayne and Theresa's only child, they will never see their child get married. They will never get the exciting news that they will be grandparents. They will never see their son hold his firstborn. They will never see their son love a child as they loved him, and they will never be able to love a grandchild as much as they love Casey. As a mother and a grandmother, my heart breaks for them. Casey was killed for nothing. He was a young man who attended the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology in Rapid City, South Dakota, and the University of Hawaii in Honolulu, Hawaii. Casey was an adventurer, and when he worked for Delta Airlines, he traveled to the Netherlands, Germany, and China. He liked to go fishing, he liked cars and music, and he liked gaming. He was a friend to many, and at his memorial service, that was abundantly clear. Casey had a lot of life left to live, and that was ended abruptly. Casey's life was ended thoughtlessly. I don't know Genesee Bryant or Raymond Banks. I only know what I have read in the media. All I know is that they are both very young and facing life in prison. I read an article published by the Argus Leader reporting that Casey was killed because Bryant and Banks wanted money. I hope this is not what they intended. Robbing someone is not how a person makes money. I'm assuming they both know the difference between right and wrong. I hope these two young men didn't go out that evening with the intention to rob and kill someone. Casey is dead, and he is never coming back. Nothing can change that, but I hope you render a lengthy penitentiary sentence to Genesee Bryant and Raymond Banks for their senseless actions. Dwayne mentioned a penitentiary sentence of 60 years. I am not sure if that is part of the plea agreements or if it's what he is hoping for. Whatever your sentence is, I hope it brings closure to this chapter for Dwayne and Teresa and brings justice for Casey. Sincerely, Mina Bonhorst, Casey's cousin. The next letter will be from Brad, B-R-A-D, and Barb, B-A-R-B, Bonhorst. I am writing in regards to the Casey Bonhorst case. My husband, Brad, and I were his uncle and aunt. We just want to say we will miss Casey. He was a very talented young man and had great potential. He was struggling a bit, perhaps why he was delivering pizzas, but was looking for a path. He was an athlete in school as well as a singer, and perhaps would have chosen a future in one of those fields had he not been murdered. He was an only child, as you know, therefore his parents now have no chance of seeing that potential grow and no chance of having grandchildren, which would have helped keep their son's memories alive. It is a very small family, and Casey did not have a lot of cousins, but they and their children are now deprived of time with Casey. I hope the courts will keep these things in mind when it comes to sentencing the murderers. Sincerely, Brad and Barb Bonhorst. Next is Hillary, H-I-L-L-A-R-Y, Dingledine, D-I-N-G-L-E-D-I-N-E, first cousin of Casey Bonhorst. On February 27, 2020, I was driving to work and had just pulled into my office garage parking when my Aunt Teresa Bonhorst called. I was in disbelief as she said the words, quote, "Casey was killed last night," end quote. Horror and shock flooded through my body, and I frantically called my brother and parents. I felt helpless, knowing that there was nothing I could do. I sat in tears at my desk and thought about the last time I had seen Casey. It was Christmas 2019, and we were at Dwayne and Teresa's acreage. I can still see Casey's smile and helpfulness as he poured the beverages during dinner. My husband and Casey conversed about fishing. Casey was my only cousin on my dad's side of the family. He was a kind, hard-working, and good friend. It is painful knowing that he will never meet my son Silas, as I was pregnant with him at the time of Casey's death. The emotional impact it has had on me comes in different forms. Sometimes it is in sadness that we live so far apart that we did not see each other often during our college years and beyond. Other days, I try to reach back for the memories of Christmases with our small family and camping in Okoboji with my grandparents, where we would play mini golf and go to ice cream socials. I also fear for my own children's safety and knowing that there is very little I can do to truly protect them from the outside world, and the evil that it can bring is unsettling. I think about Teresa and Dwayne often, and how their only son was ripped away through such a terrifying way. The strength they show is unmatched, and we wish we could take their pain away. These men took Casey's future away from him. Casey was out hard at work, and these men wanted a free ride. I don't know how much money Casey had on him at the time, but to take a life instead of contributing positively to society deserves the full sentencing without parole. I pray these men find Jesus in prison and that they can answer to him. Next, Tanner, T-A-N-N-E-R, Ulrichson, U-L-R-I-C-K-S-O-N, first cousin of Casey Bonhorst. Casey was the nicest guy anyone could meet. I can't believe that I have to use his name in the past tense now. His life was cut way too short, way too early, by two men that committed an evil act for petty change. An act so evil that my cousin's life is now gone. Casey had started fishing a lot the summer before this tragedy happened. He had talked to me during Christmas about how we needed to go fishing together in the coming spring. I was really looking forward to this and many other memories we would have made in life together. There's that past tense coming to haunt me again because of these villainous people and their act of crime that will hurt our family forever. I ask that you sentence them for life in prison with no parole. Next is David, D-A-V-I-D, Ulrichson, uncle of Casey Bonhorst. When Casey was born, it was a great blessing for my sister and her husband. Teresa and Dwayne had waited a long time for a child, And finally, Casey arrived as their miracle. Casey was a good, happy child, and his parents and grandparents were very proud. Our children and Casey would play together and have a lot of fun whenever they were together. Our children...
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you, Ms. Wilkins. Can you please remove the child from the courtroom? It's very distracting to everyone. Thank you. Go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. Our children now have no cousins on my side of the family. He was my only nephew, as Theresa is my only sibling. Casey grew up to be a young man who was thoughtful, friendly, talented, and loved life and his family. He had a good work ethic and was a great coworker and employee. We were horrified that Casey was murdered. We feel so sad that his parents have to live the rest of their lives without their son and have no possibility of grandchildren. Casey's 91-year-old grandmother, my mom, and Dwayne's parents have been devastated, as well as myself and my family. Casey's life was taken so unnecessarily and so violently by these evil men. Casey does not get to pursue his dreams and ambitions because of them. We are all deeply saddened by this premeditated but random act of evil. These evil men deserve no meaningful life and no chance of it even when they get old. I want them in prison for life with no chance of parole. The final statement is from Lynette, L-I-N-E-T-T-E, Ulrichson, aunt of Casey Bonhorst. How do you sum up a life that was taken so young, so unnecessarily, and so violently? How do you say how much he meant to you and your family? Words aren't enough. Feelings are what matters, and how you treat people. Casey was my nephew, actually my husband's nephew, but I always considered him to be my nephew too. Our family is small. Casey had a big heart and always made you feel important and that he was so glad to see you. He would help anyone if he could. My husband and I, our son, our daughter, and her husband, and their 2-year-old daughter, plus our daughter, was pregnant with her son, last saw Casey on Christmas of 2019. Little did we realize that that would be the last time we saw and spent time with him. My husband and I were on vacation in the Virgin Islands with no cell service except we had Wi-Fi when we were back at our condo. We had been at the beach, and when we got back to our condo, our phones blew up the minute we got in the parking garage. Our kids and Casey's parents had been frantically trying to reach us to tell us the horrible news about Casey. We were stunned, terribly sad, very angry, and every emotion in between. Waiting to leave for home and family 2 days later was so difficult, and the first place we went before going home was Dwayne and Theresa's. Watching my husband, kids, Casey's parents, and Casey's grandma grieve his loss over the past 2 years has been very hard. My husband has had a particularly hard time coming to grips with Casey's loss, so much so that for the first time in his life, he went down to our church to talk to our pastor to have the pastor help him deal with his anger. Our son Tanner was close to Casey as they spent a lot of time together over the years, especially camping with their grandparents. Our daughter is having a hard time knowing that her children won't get to know Casey. Of course, my mother-in-law can't believe Casey is gone. The hardest part is watching Dwayne and Theresa lose their only son and child. They are strong, but we can see how brokenhearted they are, and none of us can imagine how difficult that must be. As for me, I loved Casey, and no one can replace his spot in my heart. Of course, we all have regrets and wish we would have had more time together. Holidays and family gatherings are not the same anymore, but Casey lives in our hearts, but we sure wish he were here. I ask that you sentence his murderers to a life sentence without parole. Casey deserves that, and so do his parents. Thank you.